Okay, hi everyone. So today we're gonna be doing my July wrap up and my August TBR, but we're starting off outside because I was about to start filming and Sadie decided she wanted to come outside and wander around. As you can see, I live in the middle of the woods, so I'm gonna kind of just take you with us so you can see her cute little butt before we get into everything. Okay, hi, my name's Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and this is the official start to my July wrap-up and my August TBR. So let's start with the books. I'm definitely going to leave like a space here to put up covers of different books, and I'm sorry if you see the light kind of coming in and out. I'm just kind of going by the sun at this point. So this month I listened to 6 different audiobooks. I read 3 books physically, and then I read 1 ebook. I evened out to 10 books this month. So I guess let's kind of start with the physical books, because those are going to be a little bit easier for me. So the first book I read this month was actually Gallant by VE Schwab. So Gallant was about this young girl, Olivia Pryor, who had always lived at the Maryland School for Girls after her mother died. She didn't really know anything about her mother. All she had was a journal that her mother had kept that talked a lot about basically Olivia stay away from Gallant. It was her mother's record of her descent into madness in a way. But one day, Olivia gets a letter from her long-lost uncle telling her to come live with her at Gallant. Olivia is mute, she's always hated the school for girls, and she's always desperately wanted family. So, of course, she's really excited to go to Gallant, and that's kind of where it all goes awry. So, I actually gave this book 5 stars. I was kind of expecting it to give off more middle grade vibes than it did. I was kind of imagining it like the City of Ghosts series that VE Schwab is working on, which I also love that. But this did not end up being middle grade very much. It was more of like, there was no romance in it. If you are looking for a book that has no romance in it, this is it. This is not a romance in any capacity. This is about like a desperation for family, in a way a family curse, some supernatural things. It's really interesting. So Olivia kind of gets into the situation of, is everyone in my family just simply descending into madness? Or is something else actually going on? And she ends up accidentally getting herself into the reality of what's going on there, which I don't really want to spoil because this was really, really good, and I think that it was beautifully written. I loved Olivia as a character. I loved the ways in which she communicated. I thought those were really thorough because of course we as the reader get an idea of what's going on in her head, but her cousin and the 2 other people who live inside Gallant, they don't know what's going on really. I think one of the other characters does a little bit of sign language, but not enough for her to really have full-on communication at that point. So I thought that that was one of the best parts about this book. It's just like showing how communication can happen in this scenario, showing how impactful noise and sound are. VE Schwab really pulled at like the sensory details for this one, and it was fantastic. The next physical book that I read was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. So ultimately this was a 5-star. Look, I'm not like the biggest Sarah J. Maas stan in the entire world. I love her. I have the Throne of Glass stag on this arm, and then I have the Night Court symbol on this arm. But she is more of a comfort writer. Every time I've been in a really, really bad mental space from the age of like 16 and up until now, I'm 23, I have run to her books. But I am going to say, like, ultimately, I'm a little bit biased, because she is just my comfort author, and I will continue to go back to her books no matter what. That being said, while I gave this a 5-star, I think it was one of my least favorite of her books. It was definitely better than Tower of Dawn, because I hate Tower of Dawn, because I hate Cale Westfall. Hate him. I hate that I have read that book multiple times and I've had to put up with his perspective for that many pages. But I'm not saying that this was bad in any capacity. It just wasn't as much of my vibe as her books normally are. So this is about Bryce Quinlan, and she is part Fae living in Crescent City. We start out the series where she's living with her best friend Danica, who is a wolf pack leader. And some pretty awful things start happening. If you've read Sarah J. Maas before, you know she has a tendency to like start killing off side characters like it's nothing. This did not lack in this. And it was really hard to get through at some points because of how intense Bryce's emotions kind of are. And I don't even know how much I want to tell you about this, because I don't even know where spoilers end and where they don't. I mean, this series is so popular that if you haven't been spoiled by it yet, it's a miracle, but I wasn't spoiled. So I want to give everyone that opportunity too. But it wasn't my favorite for the fact that this is more of an urban fantasy. And there's nothing wrong with urban fantasies, but it's just not my vibe. But it was 5 stars. If you like Sarah J. Maas that much, you're gonna like it. That's all I gotta say. So the third book that I read physically was When No One Was Watching by Alyssa Cole. So I read this for Summerween, and I gave a lot more in-depth thoughts and opinions on it within that vlog, if you want to go and watch it. I gave this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. She played around with like reliability of narration a lot in this book. Whether it was thinking that our main character Sydney was kind of going through some psychological issues and we're not sure how much we can trust her judgment on things, or the reliability of Theo, the other point of view that we hear from, and whether he can be trusted or not, whether he's with Sydney or if he's with the group of people who are moving into the neighborhood and doing shady things. So ultimately, this is a book about a Brooklyn neighborhood that is a black neighborhood. It's a fairly historically black neighborhood. And Sydney grew up there. Her mother owned something there. And after Sydney got a divorce, she moved back to try and pick up the pieces of her life. Her mother was sick, she needed help, Sydney needed some emotional support, Then some white people start moving into the neighborhood. Some black families just start disappearing out of nowhere. And people are just saying like, oh, they just sold their houses, they're just gone. And Sydney's kind of grappling with the fact that these people aren't the kind of people who would have just picked up and left with no thought, no saying to anyone else. They are neighbors. They are a community that supports each other. But that's what's happening. It's one day, this family that she's known her entire life is living in their house, and then the next day they're gone. And a white family is moving in and gentrifying the neighborhood. But ultimately, it was just amazing. It was really good. The last 30 pages of it really was just like, bam, punching you in the face. So, it was really good. So let's move on to the ebook that I read. It was Gilda Joyce Psychic Investigator by Jennifer Allison. This is another one that I read for Summerween, and it was a childhood favorite of mine. I was really into the supernatural when I was between like 9 and like 13. So I read a lot of these books. There are trigger warnings for this book, even though it is middle grade, for actual suicide, suicidal ideation, severe depression. So be aware of that. But it's about Gilda, who she's 13, she's cool as hell, and she wants to go see her long lost uncle or second cousin or whatever who lives in San Francisco for the summer. And she ends up finding her way over there because when she sets her mind to something, she makes it happen. And the tower that is outside of his San Francisco home is where 10 years previous his sister had jumped to her death and committed. So Gilda and her cousin Juliet are kind of solving the mystery of what happened to this aunt. Is she haunting the place? What's going on? I really liked it. I gave it like 4 stars. I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia for it. It's definitely not made for me now because I'm 23, but it was made for me back then, and I really loved it. It was fun and it was exciting, and I just thought it was great. Okay, lighting's a little different. It's currently 5:30, so the sun is really starting to head away, so I had to turn on a different light. But let's move on to the audiobooks that I read. So I started with The Once and Future Witches by Alix Harrow, which was about 3 sisters, James Juniper, Agnes Amaranth, and Beatrice Belladonna. It's based off like the witch trials, honestly. And it's got that kind of energy to it. I don't really have that much to say about it. I didn't think it was bad. I had a good time listening to it. But I don't think it's something that's really going to stick with me all that much. I will say, these 3 sisters are based off of the 3 witches. It's the Mother, the Maiden, and the Crone. I think that's what it is. Don't quote me on it. But Beatrice Belladonna was based off the Crone. And she was like super into books. She worked at a library. She had kind of made her life for herself at a library. And she's also a lesbian. And her romance was so cute. Oh my god, her romance was so adorable. I loved them. I gave it like a 3.5 stars because it was good, but it wasn't anything spectacular for me. It wasn't bad. It surrounded women empowerment. It had a lesbian main character. That's all I can really say about it. Next I read The Maid by Nita Prose, which was about a hotel maid named Molly Gray who really loved her job as a maid. Her gran recently died and she's kind of been left by herself to figure things out. It's a murder mystery that basically revolves around the fact that she has a really hard time with people. It was never stated that she was autistic, but I think that's kind of where it was going in that, of like how bad people take advantage of who have a hard time with social situations, understanding social cues, understanding relationships as a whole. So it was fine. I gave it like a 3.5 stars. I really liked the audiobook narrator. I liked the story. I liked Molly as a character, and I liked the input that we got of like what her grand was like. And I liked the twist at the end too. I thought that it was pretty interesting, and I think that it kind of came full circle on like getting to kind of compare what people who are taking advantage of her look like in comparison to people who actually care about her. So I didn't think it was bad. I don't know what I would say about the autism representation in this. I don't even know if that's the direction that other people are taking it. It's the direction that I took it. And I am currently in the midst of getting an autism diagnosis, so I'm certainly not an expert at these things in any capacity. So it was fine. That's where we're at. It was fine. All of the audiobooks that I listened to this month were just fine. The physical books, amazing. Audiobooks were kind of a flop this month. Okay, we're gonna do a quick walkthrough of the audiobooks that I read for Summerween. I did the Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I gave it a 3 stars. I did Final Girls by Riley Sagar. I gave that 3 stars. And I did Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar, and I can't remember if that was like a 3 or a 3.5. All of them were fairly mediocre to me, honestly. The 2 Final Girls books, I don't think I'll ever read another Final Girl book in any capacity. So Final Girl Support Group is about 6 different women who are considered final girls, and what a final girl is like, I think it's you get attacked the first time and you survive, and then they come back a second time and you survive again. So all of them are having, like, they have fairly hard times with existing after being hunted, basically, which is very fair, but we're following Lynette, who is really, really trying to survive over all else. Like, she's not even living because she's just trying to survive. And I can understand why. Because she was hung up, I think, on like moose antlers or something like that, and left to dangle for like hours and hours as she watched her family be brutally murdered. And she was the only one who survived. I don't know how you would survive from being hung from antlers on the wall, but she did. So I'm not in the medical field. I don't know how these things work, but apparently they work. So she's basically trying to figure out like this big old mystery of like, there's someone out to kill some final girls. The final girls in the support group. And she's hell-bent on figuring that out, who it is, and stopping them. It was just fine. Like, I didn't expect where it went, but I look back on it and I'm like, that makes so much sense. It makes so much sense, and I was just being stupid for not really getting it. Which is fine. Final Girls by Riley Sagar was about, I think this one had like 3 different final girls in it. We're following Quincy, who was a survivor of a like cabin in the woods murder. And a bunch of stuff happens, and ultimately she ends up in a similar situation all over again, having to try and survive. This one was more of a like trying to figure out like relationships more than anything, if that makes any sense. So it was fine. Lock Every Door by Riley Sagar. Also, fine. I liked this one more. So this one kind of gave off more of a like, is this really happening? Am I going crazy? Is this haunted? It's never haunted. That's what you should learn from me. Riley Sagar is going to make you feel like something's haunted. It's never haunted. It's lies. Lies. But I thought the twist was really interesting. I didn't expect it in the slightest. I really liked our main character. She got laid off from her job and found out that her long-term boyfriend was cheating on her on the same day. She goes and answers a Craigslist ad for a job that pays $12,000 to live in this fancy apartment in the Bartholomew just to occupy the suite. The suite's not occupied. But she takes it because she's trying to get back on her feet. She's desperately trying to get back on her feet. And everything goes awry from there. Creepy old apartments, kind of spooky vibes, weird wallpaper. It was great. That part of it was great. Okay, let's finish with the last one that I finished for this month. The Last Quintista by Donna, Barba, Higuera. Higuera. Donna, Barba, Higuera. I am having such a hard time with that last name. My girlfriend's Latina, and she told me how to pronounce it, and she tried to help me pronounce it, and I cannot get it for the life of me. So I'm really sorry that I'm butchering it, but I'm trying. I'm really trying. So it's a sci-fi about this Mexican family who, it's the mother, the father, Petra, and her little brother all get put on a ship with a bunch of other people because Halley's Comet is coming around and is going to basically destroy the planet. So they're trying to evacuate the planet as much as they can, and Petra's parents are both really important scientists. I think her mom is like a botanist and her father is, he's a rock scientist. I can't remember what that's called. They're supposed to be put in stasis pods where they will be loaded with information for like 400 years until they get to the next habitable planet that they found. Well, everything goes awry from there. As we all know, humans cannot just be left entrusted with things. And the people who are awake on the ship, who are supposed to be running everything and making sure things go smoothly, decide they want to erase every aspect of Earth and Earth culture, Earth everything, from the ships, so they can kind of take over and they become the collective. And they just do what they want. And Petra, she has a malfunction when she's supposed to be put into stasis that kind of prevents what the collective did from affecting her that much. So she wakes up like 400 years later or so, and she's supposed to be turned into what is basically like a slave to the collective. She would be called a Zeta, and there's like no memory of anything, and they're just supposed to be like programmed to serve the collective. That doesn't happen to her. So she starts to desperately find a way to take her and the other Zetas off the ship onto the planet that they have landed at that is habitable for them to try and start a life. I gave this one like a 3.5 stars. I really liked it. I might bump it up to a 4-star, honestly. It basically just comes out to Mexican folklore is super interesting. The prioritization of storytellers, incredible. Made me really, really like a sci-fi novel, which I don't read very much of because I don't really enjoy them. Super happy with that one. And that wraps up what I have read for July. I'm going to do a super quick August TBR because TBRs are kind of hard for me. So I do listen to audiobooks pretty much all day, 5 days a week. Most of the time I also listen to podcasts, but I listen to them through the Libby app that I get from my library. So my audiobook consumption really just kind of depends on what's available to me at the moment. So I only have 3 audiobooks that I have planned to read so far, because they're the only 3 that I have checked out right now. I have Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare, which is a reread for me. I've read the entirety of the Mortal Instruments series and the Shadowhunters, like the original Shadowhunters series. I want to reread the Mortal Instruments because those are my favorite, and I kind of want to continue on with the series. I kind of stopped at Lady Midnight because I was in my first year of college and I got kind of overwhelmed by, but I kind of want to continue, but I kind of want to refresh before I make that commitment, and I refuse to reread the Shadowhunter series because I didn't love it in the first place. And you know what? I don't want to go back to like those incesty kind of vibes. I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to. So we're going to reread the manageable 3-book prequel and kind of go from there. And then I also have, for audiobooks, the Anthropocene review by John Green, which is, I am reading because Ariel from Books Unbound, the podcast, she read it, and I was kind of interested in the way that she was talking about it and like the formatting of it. So it's by John Green, and it's just a bunch of essays that he wrote about stuff, and it just kind of intrigued me. I also have Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica, which I don't really know very much about. I think that it is about a woman who went missing quite a few years ago, and then maybe like 10 years later or something, she shows back up and everyone's like, what's going on? Where were you? I think that's what it's about. Don't quote me. It popped up as something that was available from my library, and Kayla from Books and Lala read it, I believe, or she mentioned it on her channel or something. So I was just like, okay, I'll try it. I've never read something because she talked about it before, because I know she has really, really specific taste. So I just kind of want to like dip my toe into what her reading tastes are like and kind of decide from there. I want to kind of do that with a couple different booktubers that I've watched for quite a few years to just see, do I just watch you because I like you as a person, or do we have like similar taste? Because I don't know. So we're kind of going to start and see where it goes from there. So those are the only planned audiobooks that I have for this month. I'm also going to read House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, because I need it in my life. I need it in my life. I'm not going to give you a summary on it. I'm going to read it. I've already started to read it. It's July 30th. I also really want to start reading some stuff off of my shelves, kind of breaking down my TBRs a little bit. So, my other plans for this month are Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. So, TJ Klune wrote The House in the Cerulean Sea. And I loved it. It was just a happy book for me. So for Christmas, I had bought my best friend The House on the Cerulean Sea because she's been going through a really hard time lately. So she read it and she said it made her so happy. And then she gave it to her mom, who read it, who said it's a book that brings a lot of joy. So she's reading Under the Whispering Door right now. So I'm going to read it so we can talk about it. because we both need a little bit of joy in our lives, and I'm happy that she's taking the initiative to put that joy into her life right now, because her chameleon is spouting pus, so she's not vibing with it. I also really would like to read The Wrath and the Dawn and The Rose Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. I've had these on my shelves for probably 5 years now, and I have not read them. I think it's inspired by 1001 Nights. So I really like fairy tale retellings. I honestly have liked pretty much every single fairy tale retelling that I've ever read, especially Heartless by Marissa Meyer. So I think that I'm ready for a retelling at this point. So I'm gonna get through those, start picking away at some of my TBR so I don't feel so guilty when I go out and buy new books. So yeah, those are my plans for August. Nothing like super duper concrete, but yeah, I'm really excited. This was fun. I will probably continue to do wrap-ups and TBRs as one video, because my TBRs, I don't really have that much to say, but I'm pretty excited for August. I've got my office back, if you guys couldn't tell or if I didn't bring it up earlier. My father just moved up to Maine, and he had been staying in my office for a month while he looked for an apartment. So I haven't had my office, and now I have it back, and I am so incredibly excited. So hopefully I'll be doing more filming, hopefully I'll be taking more pictures, hopefully I'll be getting it together. I'm sorry for this weird lighting. The sun is shining through the trees in my yard, and doing this weird thing. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will catch up with you some more next time. Bye.